Hey, this is Patrick here, and I'm going to go ahead and show everybody a small tutorial on how to make a title screen in Unity. And this title screen is going to have two different buttons, one that's going to take you to start your game, and one of them that's going to open an options menu panel. And we're going to go ahead and start because we're going to be transitioning between two different scenes. In your assets folder, you're going to start with scenes. You're going to go ahead and create a scene by going under scenes, right-clicking, create, and scene. Then it's going to prompt you to name your new scene. We will call this scene game scene. Just give it a nice little unique name. Now currently that scene is going to be blank, and both scenes are going to just have a main camera and a directional light. That's fine. We're going to go under UI, and we're going to go ahead and actually put down a canvas. Then after our canvas, because you have to have a canvas for any of this to work, you're going to go ahead and put down a panel. So this panel, you see it gives you a little semi-transparent overlay to your screen. See, it's a little, everything's a little grayed out. All you can see is the actual skybox and the non-existent ground. For this, everything you want to give a name, so we're going to go ahead and name this main menu panel. Something, distinct, and that tells you exactly what you're looking at. PNL was for panel. That is why I named it PNL. And then we're going to go ahead and under our panel, there are a couple different options. You see there is an option for the image that you want to use. You can change the image, and if you have a background image that you want to use, you can put that there, or you can go ahead and we can change the color, and we could mess with anything with that, but we're going to go ahead and leave it at white, and we're going to go ahead and drag this up to make it no longer transparent. We want this to be a solid background for the point of this tutorial. Now, most games have a title. Now you can either do this with like an image, or you can do this with some text. Now we're going to go ahead and just use some text. Now there are advantages to using an image or text. There are different advantages. So one advantage for using text is that you can edit it on the fly, but an image you might have something very custom that you want to put up there, that's not just font related, that might have some symbols or some design to it. So we're going to go ahead and name our text here, we can go ahead and name it up top here. We're going to go ahead and call this title txt. Now our text is going to say the name of our game, and for my purpose I'm just going to call this demo game. You can call this game whatever you want to, but I'm just going to call it demo game. Now we're probably going to want demo game up here at the top of our screen, but if I go ahead and hit play now, you're going to see that it jumps way down, and it's also way too small. Probably can't even barely read it at this point. So what we're going to want to go ahead and do is we're going to switch the anchor point to the top middle of our screen. Now that the anchor point is set, all of our positions change based off of that anchor point. So we know we are 24 units to the right, or 24 units to the left, and 83 units down. So we're going to go ahead, and I like making things round numbers, so we're going to go ahead and do -100. And I'm going to go ahead and put this at 0. Now currently it's very small, so we can go ahead and change this font size down here. I'm going to do something like 90. I already looked at 90. It looks pretty good. But here the problem is our text disappeared entirely. And that is because our text box does not have enough space for the letters, so we're going to go ahead and turn on horizontal overflow and vertical overflow. Now it says demo game, but you see it is off center. We have it set at 0, and we have it set at -100. 0 means it should be right in the center, but the alignment of our text is to the left. So we're going to go ahead and switch our alignment to the center to go ahead and bring our text to the center. And now we have a title for our game. But to switch between the scenes, we're going to need something that allows us to switch between the scenes. We can go ahead and add a button. So we can go ahead and put this button over here. I'm actually going to give it a different a different anchor. We're going to anchor it to the top left, and I'm going to go ahead and put it at 300, negative 300 for the purpose of this tutorial. You can mess with wherever you want to put the button, but I like doing things with numbers and positionings. So you can mess with whatever you want though, and you can just move this around and drag it around, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and put it 300. I still think this button is going to look a little small, so if we go ahead and pull this up, that is a small button. Like, yes, it's legible, you can read it, you could probably play a game with a button that small, but I would prefer a much larger button, so we're going to go ahead and make this about 320, and we'll make the height 160, giving it a 2-to-1 ratio. The text will now be a little small, so we're going to go ahead and enlarge that. We'll go ahead and say make it 30, and we'll go ahead and call this start for now. Start. Now, we could call it continue or new game, but we're going to focus on new game and continue later, because that'll be more so when you have some data to save and replay your game with, or start a new file. So we have a start button now, but our start button currently is not going to do anything, and it is not named. So we're going to name it start btn. Now it is named start button, but it's not going to do anything. What we want it to do is to go between these two scenes. For that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to need to make a new script. So we're going to create a C# script. This C# script, I'm going to go ahead and call game, or we'll call it main menu management. And we'll go ahead and under here, you're going to want to right click again. You're going to want to create an empty game object, right like that. And we're going to name this empty game object menu management. Now, under menu management, you see you can add a component, and we can add the main menu script here, or we can create a new script, and you could name the script like that. Or I can just simply go ahead and drag and drop the script that I created under main menu management, and it's that simple. Now we have the script under there. But currently, if we open up our script does not do anything. It's just an empty start and update function. Well, to use it for a button, we're going to go ahead and make this public void, and we're going to name this continue btn. And that's creating a function. This function is going to handle switching between the two scenes. Now, the call for this is scene manager dot load scene, and then you have to type the name of your scene. Well, currently we have a main menu and a game scene. We're going to go ahead and we're going to call we're going to call game scene. Okay, cool. Sorry, I accidentally clicked insert. And so this is going to have to be case sensitive and typed just like you titled your game scene. Whatever the title for that scene is, it's going to have to be typed properly. Now, we're missing one thing, but I'll go ahead and tell you about that later. It's going to go right here so you know I didn't actually forget. Scene manager does not exist. See, it's actually already giving me an error for this. So here's what the error is for. I have to actually go and say using Unity Engine, and I'm going to have to say dot scene, and I'm using a program here called SlickEdit. If I click Control Space in SlickEdit, it's just going to go ahead and autofill the rest of that word for me. But so I can do using Unity Engine dot scene management, because that is going to manage between the different scenes. Now, the error should Oh, missed an A there. It's actually not why it was giving me the error. So now it's still not going to do anything, and there's actually two reasons that the start button's not going to do anything. For one, we haven't told the start button to do anything. So if we go down to this onClick event over here, and we go ahead and click Add, we can go ahead and select our main management, which has our main menu script on it. And you're going to go ahead and find main menu management under that and do continue button, because that was what we named it. Now, continue button will still not work. We're still not going to go to, oh, actually it does work. The reason it shouldn't work though is because I'd already previously did this, but under build settings, you're going to want to go ahead and take your two scenes and drag them into the build settings. You're going to want to actually have to drag those two scenes in, and so all you do is File, Build Settings, and then you're going to go ahead and just drag and drop these into here, and that will make this work correctly. Then you go ahead and click Start, and you see we load our game scene. Alright, now we also don't want to just leave this main menu out here, so we're going to actually create a folder for it, and we're going to call that scripts. You can go ahead and take the main menu script, just drag it right under that, and that's going to store all of our unique scripts that we're going to have for our game. So now I think our start button looks a little plain. So what if we wanted to, maybe put in a custom start button? We wanted to make the start button look a little bit better. Well, one of the things we can go ahead and do is I have actually created this demo button right here. It says button. We're going to go ahead and just take it, the asset, drag and drop it right in the file. Now we have the button. It is now currently an asset. Under start button, you see there is a source image, which is UI Sprite. Well, I could go ahead and just drag this under, but it's not letting me. The reason for that is because we have to actually go under the texture type and switch it to Sprite, 2D, and UI. Now, all we have to do is click Apply, and there's other things that you can do with the sprite too. So if you get a sheet of sprites, say you're making what's it called? A 2D game, you might have like a sprite sheet. So there's different settings in here that you can use to mess with multiple different sprites as well. If it were multiple sprites, but it's not. This is just a single sprite. And we're going to go ahead and just click Apply right like that. Now we can go ahead and just drag our sprite under here, and bam, we have a custom beveled start button that actually looks more like a real button. You can make a much fancier button, I'm sure, and I'm going to go ahead and actually change this text to bold, and I think it'd look a little bit better if it were white on that right there like that. So now we're going to go ahead, and that is our new start button. Now we're going to go ahead and want to actually create an options button, because we're going to want to have options. So you can either right click, duplicate, or you can just click this button. You can just click the button and click Control D, and that will duplicate the button. We're going to take our next new button down here, and I think -500 looks right, because I like those nice round spacings, like 200 apart. And we're going to go ahead and rename this, and it's going to be Options BTN. So this is now our options button. And now we don't want them both to say start. That might get a little confusing. So we'll go ahead under this and type options. Now we have our two buttons, but our options button's not going to load anything if it doesn't exist. So we're going to have to go under the UI once again. Well, first of all, let's actually take all of our text, our start button, and our options button, and let's make them all children of the main menu panel. So to do that, just shift or just click and then shift click all the different texts and buttons, and you're going to go ahead and just drag them under the main menu panel. Now they're all children of that. So now we can go in Game Object, UI, and we're going to create a new panel. This panel we're going to go ahead and use for our options. So we'll call that options PNL, right like that. And this is going to mess with that. Well, now that we have the options panel, we're not going to be able to click these buttons because they are below it. So how it works is whatever is lower on this little list, so main menu is going to be behind options. If you had another panel that was in front of that one, so see if I go ahead and switch the order of this, now the main menu panel is ahead of it. So whichever one is the bottom of the list is going to actually be the one that is being used. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and create an image. We're going to go ahead and drag this over. I'm going to go ahead and put it in position 0 and 0. Now we're going to want the width to be, say, something like 500, and we're going to make the height something around, we'll just do 1,000. And now we have a little background for our image. We'll call this options background. And then for this, we're also going to go ahead and create another text like we did earlier. And if I go ahead and make that a child of the options background, I can go ahead and set that the anchor point to the center, top center of the actual options panel, and name this options. Go back under our overflow, horizontal overflow, and make it overflow instead of truncate on both again. Because again, we're going to want to make this a lot larger. Make that around 50. Center it as well. Put that in the center. Again, we're going to go have to center that. Make that -50 just so it's not some odd number that nobody can ever keep track of. And I like it bold. I like it bold for the sake of these tutorials. And there we go. Now we have a title to our options. Now, if options is open, we have no way to get back. We're not going to be able to click these buttons back here. So we're going to actually have to make another button for under the panel, and we're going to have to call this button. We'll just call it return. Go ahead and put this one just linked to the bottom here. And for all our buttons, they're too small, so we're going to go ahead and make something like that. Just so our button's a little bit bigger. And say this button was meant to be different, we'll go ahead and leave this as the base button. Position, we're going to do 150. And we're going to leave that as the base button. Going to rename it. Return button. And we're going to go ahead and say menu. It's going to be what that says. So we're going to change the font of that as well. Change it to 30. And now we have a button that will take us back to the menu. Currently, though, our options button is just going to take us into, well, menu button's going to do nothing. And this is, the menu button is also, where did it go? Return button, not a parent of the background image, which needs to be all be children of the options panel. So now when we go ahead and click play, you see they're all going to be aligned in the right places. And it's all going to stay in the center of the screen, but the buttons are going to do nothing, and there's no way for us to access these buttons over here. We also don't have any options to play with, but this is just for later, just showing you how to do some user interface stuff. So we're also going to go ahead and, bad habit is to not make something for, say, our UI. We're going to go ahead and put our little button under UI. And what our return button is going to do is hello, okay, interesting. Okay, there we go. Sorry, that was from me messing up a tutorial earlier. I just didn't like it enough, you know. So we're gonna go back and okay, we're gonna make what these buttons do. Void, and we're gonna have to create buttons for this. So this is gonna be the return btn, and then we're gonna create one for Bam. Now we've got all of what our buttons do. But currently, we're going to have one more problem, which is that we have to have something to enable and disable this panel. So we're actually going to go under our main menu, and we're going to actually create a game object variable. And it's going to need to be public. So if it's not public, we can't access it, and we're going to call this options PNL. Bam. So now we have a public game object that is the options panel. So when we return, we're going to want to set the options panel, and you see we're just going to go ahead and take that options panel, and we're going to go ahead and let's set active, or actually game object. It's game object, and this time it's going to be a lowercase g and a capital O dot game object dot set active. And since we are getting out of it, it's going to be false. We can go ahead and just take this again, because all we're really doing is manipulating this panel, and we're going to go ahead and paste it down here. Now this time though, we're going to want to actually make the options panel active. And bam. Now these buttons will function properly, except that if you go under scene management, we have not defined what this public options panel is. So after that, we're going to have to go back into our menu management, and we're going to have to drag our options panel under there. That way it knows what object we're setting as active and inactive. Then you go under our list here. We're going to go ahead and add a click event. We're going to use our menu management, and we're going to go ahead and use return button. Now for our main menu panel, we're going to have to go under the options, and it already remembers, since we duplicated off of the other button, it remembers the menu management. We're just going to have to switch what it's using. It's no longer going to continue. It's going to open the options. Now when you click menu disappears, or the options menu disappears, and we get back to our main menu. When you click options appears, and we can just go ahead and switch between those two panels. We click start, we can go ahead and proceed to what would be our main game. But here's the problem: we don't want our options panel to display on the moment that we start the game. You can actually go up here where there's this little checkbox beside, and this is going to go ahead and set that as not active when you start your scene. So now it's not active to start, now it's active, now it's not active, now it's active, not active. You could also just, on the start of main menu, you could have just set it to false. You could have just set this to false right here. And so that would be how you would make your title screen of your game. If anybody's interested in Slick Edit, Slick Edit is it's a pretty cool product. I talked with the owner a little bit. They're going to be adding some maybe some support for Unity, and it does a lot of cool things. Like, one of my favorite things that I found out about with it was you could do something along lines like this. So if I were to make a switch statement, I could go ahead and actually shift right click and shift right click. Things never work when you want to. Shift right click, and I can type case, and you see I'm making all of my cases at once. And usually when you're making cases, you want to go ahead and actually, I'm just going to go ahead and right click this time and drag down, and I can go ahead and go under edit. You're going to want to increment usually like by a variable, so the variable is usually a number or something like that. They actually have enumerate right here. I can go ahead and click OK. I've enumerated all of those. You can go click N to go to the end of the line. I can go ahead and shift right click again, because now I can go ahead, do this, break, bam. Multiple cursors. I have made a bunch of different cases at once. I love their little multiple cursors that they got here. It's really cool. They've got a lot of other useful features and cool things like that, like their beautify while typing, or you can go ahead and just beautify their code. And there's a lot of cool features. They have YouTube videos and tutorials on it. But if you guys are interested in Slick Edit or trying it out, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to that in my description below. Anyway, thanks for watching my video, and I will continue with my next video on player movement and maybe some terrain building. So we'll go ahead and show how the terrain manager works in Unity. I'll probably show you how to sculpt and mold terrain. Anyway, have a good day. That's going to be it for this video. Catch you later.